we have developed the checklist course type in the LMS because we found that our clients, all of our clients, have some sort of checklist training function that they perform. It could be an OJT checklist, an onboarding checklist, to proficiency testing, or an evaluation checklist. But at any rate, all of our clients have some sort of checklist type training. So in an effort to make the LMS more comprehensive, we felt that it would be good to create that type of that course type in the LMS to allow the training to be tracked along with all of the other training offerings. And as I said, a checklist, course type, it tracks training activities that are traditionally administered through paper-based documentation. However, it allows you to track it electronically. The checklist course type can be completed on a mobile device or on a laptop. And it just kind of reduces the need to have a slip of paper, even though you can still complete your checklists paper-based and then scan them into a PDF form and upload them to an employee's checklist course type enrollment. But it just allows for the tracking and documentation to be a little bit more efficient and to be a little bit more, less of an impact on the environment. So the benefits of doing your checklist electronically is that it provides efficient completion and documentation of the steps that are identified in the checklist. It reduces the need to have printed, checklist documents. And it allows comments for each one of the tasks to be communicated electronically. So if upper management or anybody else needs to review the comments that you're putting in, they can do that just by logging into the LMS, going to the employee's LMS record, and looking at the checklist itself. And it also, having the checklist electronically, it allows for uniformity so that everybody is using, you're guaranteed everybody is using the same checklist. Everybody's following through the same procedures. So now what I would like to do is we will jump into the LMS and I will show you how you would administer somebody's checklist. So when you have an electronic checklist and one of your employees needs to be able to complete that checklist, you as a supervisor or a system administrator would log into the LMS. You would navigate to that employee's record. Once that employee is found, you click View, and then you'll scroll down to the employee's enrollment table, and you'll find the checklist or the proficiency test, whatever it might be that needs to be completed. You'll click View, and then you'll click View Checklist. So as you're going through the checklist, the first thing you want to do is identify what type of training is this. Is this initial or recertification? So for this exercise, we'll say initial. So you notice when I click on initial, we get this dialog box that says, I, Donald Roberts, certified that test account has completed this task. So I'll say okay. And then you'll see that it timestamps when I added this task. When I stated that this task was complete, it adds a timestamp. And then since this is initial training, we will just mark the recertification as not applicable. And you'll notice that there is the does not apply button on the far right hand side, so you would just click that. And again, you'll get the dialog box that says this task does not apply. So I'll say okay. And then we get into you're actually watching the employee walk through all the steps of the checklist. So for the pre-use, the employee looks for damage. So I'm going to check OK, and then documents all findings. So since this we'll say is a brand new forklift, what we're going to do is click on the add comments, and I'm going to add new forklift, no damage present. And I cannot stress enough how important it is to add comments to each one of the tasks as you're walking through the tasks with the employee. The importance of adding the comments and the benefits of adding the comments is that in 2 weeks, 2 months, 2 years, you'll be able to come back to this checklist and you'll be able to see everything that took place, just like you would if it was a paper-based document. So I'm going to say, okay, that the employee did check for damage. Since it was new, there was nothing to document. And then we're going to follow through with picking up the load. Yes, they stopped 1 foot before. They cleared personnel from the load. Yes. Did they lift the load smoothly? They lifted it smoothly, but I had to prompt them to slow down while lifting the load. So this way, and you can see that the comments field will also do a spell check for you. So I'm going to add that comment, stabilize the load to remind employee to tilt mast. So as you can see, as you're going through the checklist, you can mark all kinds of things. Say that he did not keep his arms and legs inside the forklift. For some reason, he was one of those people that likes to dangle his leg off the side of the forklift. Not recommended at all, but maybe that's what he did. So what you'll do is just make a comment. And you're going to leave that particular task blank because he did not complete that task to your satisfaction. So again, you're only wanting to check a task off if they completed it at your satisfaction. If they did not, leave the task blank for now. And then you'll go ahead and check everything else off. Actually, I'm going to mark this one as not applicable. We have no inclines. So then after you get through the entire checklist, you will be able to go to the bottom of the checklist itself, and you'll be able to mark the checklist as complete. And when you mark the checklist as completed, you'll be able to set that checklist to pass or fail. So you'll see that there is, right now, the system does a calculation that 15 of the 28 tasks have been completed. So the system would score this checklist at 54%. Even if the checklist was completed at 100%, but you still don't feel that the employee is ready to go out on their own to operate the piece of equipment, you can still mark them as failed. So you'll see that once the checklist has been marked as failed, the enrollment is showed as failed, And we can have the system set up so that checklists will be auto-enrolled on failure. So then they would get a new enrollment that you can go back and walk them through all the steps again. If at any time in the future you want to see, okay, why was this failed? You can come back to that employee's enrollment, click View Checklist, and then you will see all of the information that you put into the checklist. Again, this comes back to why I really stressed that the notes, putting comments in, is very, very important. So this way, when you come back to the checklist itself in the future, you can see exactly what happened. And the nice thing is, if for some reason, I know some auditors, they like to have a piece of paper in their hand, they want to see something tangible. If you ever had to print the checklist, you could just right click in your browser and use the print function from your browser, and it will bring up the checklist with all of your comments that you've associated to each one of the tasks. So if you were ever at a point that you needed to have a paper-based version of your checklist, you can always print it directly from the LMS if needed. So again, that's kind of a very high-level overview of our checklist course types. The system can allow employees to perform certain tasks and set them to complete. But for the most part, we have it default so that the supervisor or administrator has to complete the checklist for an employee. So if an employee did launch it, they would not be able to click on any of the features within the checklist itself. So at this time, I'm actually going to pause the recording and see if anybody has any questions. Okay, well, if there are no other questions, I just wanted to make sure that you guys have, a couple of key takeaways from this session. The first one is that checklist course types help improve the environmental footprint by reducing the amount of paper that has to be printed, stored, housed, and transferred back and forth. Checklist course types can be completed on any mobile device. And checklist course types allow for easy maintenance, updating, and tracking and reporting. So again, the checklist course type, it makes it electronic, and it allows for a little easier maintenance within the LMS itself. So in closing, I would just like to thank everybody for their time in joining us today. And as I had mentioned, this recording will be on the MotiveLMS YouTube channel, but I also encourage you to follow us on social media, as we're always posting updates and new tips and tricks on how to use the system themselves. So again, I want to thank you and wish you all a wonderful day. We'll see you again next month.